There's one decision you can make today that will triple your chances of finding the right person next time you hire. Because hiring, like a lot of other things, is a game of probabilities. The more people you attract, as long as they're relevant, qualified people, the more likely it is that you'll find the right person for the job. And how do you attract more people? Well, naturally, it helps to make the job more attractive, or at least to present the opportunity in the most attractive way possible. But it has much more impact if you can increase your reach and put your proposition in front of more people, again, assuming they remain relevant. And in biotech, where many roles have extremely specific requirements, getting your proposition in front of a wide enough audience of the right prospective candidates can be tough. Most biotech companies make it tougher, though, because they only use traditional sourcing methods, things like job adverts, creating LinkedIn posts, attending career fairs, and using recruitment agencies. And much of the time, those traditional approaches only get your message in front of active job seekers. These are people who've already decided that they've had enough and are proactively looking for their next thing. And yes, this is even true of using recruitment agencies, because most of them limit themselves to the traditional methods as well. They just do it at a greater volume than you can manage yourself. Now, there are exceptions to this, obviously, with Singular being one of them. But based on research conducted by LinkedIn in 2022, depending on your industry, your location, and the exact skill set that you're trying to hire, these active job seekers make up between 20 and 30% of the people who could potentially do the job. Now, it's absolutely worth targeting these people because they've already made the decision to take their next career step, and so they'll be easier to convince to join you. But in the same study, however, it was shown that at any given time, up to 89% of people are open to the right opportunity if they're presented with it in the right way. And that's almost everybody. And these passive candidates, the 59 to 69% who aren't actively looking but would consider a role if it's a good fit, aren't reading job adverts, they're not responding to generic mass outreach, and they're definitely not attending career events. They are head down, doing their job, unaware of your company or the opportunity you have that could be absolutely perfect for them. So if you want to immediately triple the size of your potential talent pool for your next hire, and therefore triple your chances of finding someone amazing, then you must make passive candidates part of your sourcing strategy. And in order to do that, it's important to understand how they view job opportunities. So first, passive candidates need to be interrupted and disturbed. As I've already mentioned, if you're targeting passive candidates, the traditional methods of advertising and posting job opportunities are pretty unlikely to work. Instead of that, you'll need to find them and interrupt them. And in today's connected world, most people are reasonably easy to find if you leverage your network, utilize LinkedIn and other online platforms, and especially if you know which companies they're likely to work at. Think of all the ways you could identify them and build a list. For the most part, the people on that list will be happy or at least satisfied in their current job. So the task you face is getting their attention. Now, I've talked about this in previous videos, but this comes down to understanding why your company and your role are attractive from the candidate's perspective and presenting a proposition based on those factors to the people you want to speak to. That could be via email, through a LinkedIn message, or through an introduction or referral, and there are plenty of ways to convey your point, but they aren't going to come to you. You have to go to them. And keep in mind that if they're satisfied in their current role, then you'll need to motivate them to talk to you. Most people are motivated more by moving away from pain than moving towards pleasure, so it's not enough to just tell them all the things that are great about your company. You have to disturb them from the comfort of their current environment. And sometimes that's pretty straightforward. You might know, for example, that the company they work for isn't historically great at promoting people, or they don't pay well, or they're facing some scientific or funding challenges. But on other occasions, you might have to make an educated guess, in which case it might help to know that the most common reasons that people move jobs in biotech are, number one, career progression, number two, opportunities to learn and develop professionally, 3, new, interesting, impactful science. 4, issues with culture, environment, and leadership. So the second point to remember is that passive and active exist on a spectrum, so qualification is key. In most circumstances, someone who's absolutely deliriously happy in their job with no intention of leaving doesn't wake up one day and just decide that they've had enough and start applying to newer jobs immediately. Every passive candidate is at a different point on their journey. Normally, they start out with a general sense that things aren't right, which becomes a specific issue or series of issues most commonly. Then they're open to new opportunities before they become a full-blown active job seeker. For some people, that might take years, and for others it could be a couple of weeks. But how you treat passive candidates and how you communicate with them depends on where they are on this spectrum. So a thorough qualification is essential. And you can waste a huge amount of time courting people who are very unlikely to move, and I've seen it happen time and time again. A general rule of thumb is that if someone has no real reason to leave their current job, no push factors, then it doesn't matter how attractive an opportunity is, they aren't going to move. Moving jobs is always a risk, and if you're generally happy where you are, it's a risk that isn't usually worth taking. As a result, it's essential that you ask questions to get to the bottom of each person's frustrations or concerns about their job, their company, or their prospects. Almost everyone has them, and if you can't find them, then there's a good chance you're just wasting time on a lost cause. And the third key factor to remember is that you have to sell to passive candidates and convince them that what you're offering is better than what they already have. Now, there's a belief among a lot of hiring managers that they shouldn't have to convince people to join their team. Those people should want to come on board, and if they're not biting your hand off, then they're not the right person. And while I can understand the logic behind that, when trying to hire passive candidates, that logic is flawed. You definitely don't want to hire someone who doesn't want the job. But the reality is that in most cases, you actually can't. Very few people will take a job that doesn't excite them unless for some reason they need to. And with passive candidates, the necessity isn't usually there. They're content in their current role. So when you interrupt and disturb them, then the onus is on you to convince them that actually you have a better opportunity, rather than on them to convince you that they desperately want the job. And after nearly 20 years of recruiting, my observation is that unwillingness to sell to candidates comes down to two factors: arrogance and lack of confidence. To combat the first, try to remember that there are lots of great companies out there. Yours isn't the only one. When dealing with passive talent, there's a decent chance that where they work is already pretty good. So you can't automatically assume that they think your organisation is better. Lack of confidence, on the other hand, often arises from the idea of sales being beyond the reach of the interviewer. The truth is, though, that sales can be easy if you care about what you're selling and you take the time to get to know your prospect. Try and prepare a list of all the great things about your company, about the job you're hiring for, and about the associated opportunities, and then choose the points that best fit with your understanding of what's important to each individual candidate, which you should know from qualifying them during the interview process. Tell them all about the things you think they'll be most excited about, and then leave out the ones that they're not going to be interested in. A little preparation on this goes a long way. So targeting passive candidates as part of your recruitment strategy takes more effort, but you will definitely get better results, and it'll allow you to take control of your hiring through proactive action, rather than just being at the mercy of the quality of response you receive. It's particularly important when you're hiring for complex, niche, or very senior roles. So take advantage of the talent pool that most of your competitors are missing in your quest to build the best possible team.